try and see what wasn't there. You know, that if this is what's here, what are we not looking at? What are we missing? And what are connections we can make, you know, with other things related to the topic? So we've been hearing a lot about the war and how it was fought, what the soldiers' experiences were, but we haven't really thought much about the civilians and the people who lived in Vietnam and the impact that it had on them. So this morning, we have an opportunity to hear from the Vietnamese community. And some of our guests have come all the way down from Washington, D.C. today to speak with you. And we are being filmed this morning. The program is being filmed, and that is for a news station up in Fairfax. So because of that, I will ask that you hold your questions. You should have note paper. If you need note paper, please let us know. Over by the drum on the countertop there, there's extra note paper. Please feel free to get some. But what I would ask is, I want you to have questions. I just want you to write them down, please, and hold them until the appropriate time. And that's because of the recording that will be taking place, okay? I think today's presentation is going to be terrifically powerful. I have not heard it, but I imagine it's going to completely educate and change my views on much of what I've learned about the war. And I just appreciate you all being here today. So, Destiny is next to Rick, and Destiny is from our local community. She has worked with Ben King, our ops director, and she's been our liaison to put our panel together today. And Destiny is going to introduce our speakers and run the event from the table in front. So if you need to use the restroom or anything, or take a break, step outside, please feel free to do so at any time. You know, just pop up, but please go toward the outside, because remember, we're videotaping in the center, okay? If you need a coffee or a snack, again, please feel free to get up and help yourself during the program. So, any questions from our teachers before we start the panel? Okay, terrific. This afternoon, you'll have lectures from Clay Mountcastle, our director, and then I'm going to finally tell you my bricks story, and Crystal's going to talk about some of our resources that we have, and then we'll wrap it all up this afternoon, okay? Very good. So Destiny, if you would be kind enough to start our panel, thank you so much.
Hello everyone. Allow me to sit down because of the microphone. My name is Destiny Nguyen, and I am a president of the Vietnamese communities in Central Virginia. And thank you for the staff of the Vietnam War Memorial invite us here to talk about the Vietnam Wars. And I invite some of my people from Northern Virginia. The gentleman right there, he's a Vietnam veteran also, and he's from Washington, D.C., and his name is Richmond. And the one next to him, he also the Vietnamese teachers. His name is Juan Vican, and he also from Washington, D.C. And I believe Rick is from here. So I'm going to invite Mr. Mochen to talk about the Vietnam War in his times.
Thank you, Destiny. Good morning.
Good morning.
When we first come here, the name is kind of always confusing because east and west, meet somewhere but not in the name. But I was excited when I saw President signed the name as Trump, I'm sorry, Reagan Donald. So the last name first and first name last. And that's the way we do. My name is Nguyen Mao Truyn. The Truyn is my given name, Nguyen Mao is my family name. My childhood was great because after elementary school, I grew up in middle school and high school during the peacetime of the first 10 years of the Republic of Vietnam, the first republic. And after that, I was a single child of the mother. I was exempt from draft, but I volunteer to serve service, and I volunteer to serve in the RBN Airborne Division. But as a medical, I'm a pharmacist. I would say I'm glad I didn't shoot any VC of communists, but I do something to save our troops at the same time to save them wounded non-will troops. And as myself, I look at the whole thing, I'm so touched, I'm so interested in victims. I would say 20-some years, about 20 years ago when President Bush inaugurated the memorial victims of communism memorial, and that to dedicate 100 million people killed, victim by the communists. But I say no, I'm a victim as well, I'm alive. I wasn't killed, I'm a victim myself. So one man, one person got killed by citizen, by Mao, by Ho Chi Minh, we had to multiply by 10 to include me as a victim. And during the war, when I had some knowledge after college, as well as after the war, living in America, I see victims. I didn't lose any blood. I didn't get wounded, except a bad jump from the airplane. Not from your airplane. So I'm on the crutch for 2 years. But that doesn't count. As my mental wound still going on in my mind at very this moment. I'm still in constant contact with my friend there, relative there, and even younger generation back in Vietnam. Talk about victims. Then what impacted me, myself, personally the most, was the last days when we're supposed to have peace after the Paris Peace Accord. It was chaos. We feel abandoned. We have no ammunition, and we didn't know what to do. I was just lucky. I think I'm not strong with my muscle. Don't have much knowledge. Even my friend, he was overseas, communicate back and said, "You lost. South Vietnam is gone. Republic is abandoned." But I was lucky at the last moment. I disobeyed the military law to stay in the unit, but I stayed home. The last night, on the 28th of April 1975, I wandering around by the riverside. A friend of mine told me to jump on the boat, get on the boat. It's with the side not running, broken boat. But that's how I escaped. A few hours before the North Army coming to occupy the whole country. And by that day, that Black April day, the whole Vietnamese people living in the dark, and people, the whole world, don't know much about it. Only propaganda for the government. But still, thanks to the internet, the communication opened up a little bit. We know some image here, maybe my friend here. But this is the tip of the iceberg. I don't have enough vocabulary to say all the suffering, all the pain that people now are suffering. At this moment, a lot of tourists come to Vietnam, a very attractive place to go, to take a picture. The snapshot doesn't say anything. the house I used to live in become a beautiful building, a beautiful mini hotel, let's say. But who owned it? The whole South Vietnam was stolen. I say stolen. They didn't pay a penny to be boss, to be owner of the whole South Vietnam, the whole block, the whole street, the whole city of Saigon. And like I said, I was looking to someone in the boat, then I'll pick up by American, I can contract ship to embark on and end up in camp, refugee camp, Pennington in California, Marine base. And again, I believe in luck, but not really luck, because of our life, not only the muscle, the physical, but emotional and intellectual, and I believe in mental, spiritual life. That's our whole of life. And again, luck. And I was admitted to University of Texas in Austin to get my pharmacy degree back. And my living was luckier than most refugees, both people in Vietnam. Many of them, 30% of them, almost 300,000 of them end up in the bottom of the sea. And my last thought, how can I pay back? I owe so much to my parents, my teachers, my society, my humankind, you all. I owe you. So, more or less, one thing or the other. Your love, your friendship, and I don't know how to say how much love. Thank you.
Continue to Mr. Greenwald Chen. I have wrote some last night because I'm not the veteran. I born right at April 30, 1975, the day of the falling of Saigon. And I grew up in the communist country for over 10 years because they put my dad in prison for 10 years until he come home and we came to America. So I know what the freedom is. And the Journal to the Freedom for many Vietnamese people, when we got here, we really appreciate it. And let me read what I wrote last night. Hello everyone. Thank you for letting me share some of the personal perspective on the Vietnam War with you today. We often hear the phrase, the Great American Experiment. Personally, I think each of one of us appreciate this phrase differently, depending on our personal perspective, knowledge, and appreciation of the American history. We are experiencing the American history right now. As we speak, page after page and chapter after chapter of the American history book are being written. And we are the witness, as much as the writer of those pages. For better or worse, history don't repeat itself. It is the knowledge and understanding of what true history had taught us that would ensure that better outcome for our future. Even more than 50 years have passed since the American soldier left Vietnam. And almost 50 years have passed since the war ended, when the non-communist Vietnamese succeed take over the South Vietnam. Most of the American public still have very vague, conflicting, and inaccurate perspective of the Vietnam War. This is due to many reasons. The American public have been fed with the sensational war image of the past of anti-war commentary of the media. The anti-war economists and so-called historians have written books and making documentary of the Vietnam War with distorted facts of the communist propaganda. Is it much easier and more convenient to write history based on the perspective of the victors, who can always assume they won because they are good guys, so who fought for the right cause? We are talking about the communist government here. It's just much easier to cast one loser in Vietnam War as a foreign aggressor or a bad guy, especially when since the bad guy is a superpower and a foreign government from across Pacific Ocean. We're talking about the United States here. To be more pacifist. And it's much easier to cast another loser as a puppet government that were corrupt and weak, as a bad guy who deserved to lose because they didn't have enough support of the people. We are talking about the former Republic of Vietnam here. I am not a historian or academic of the Vietnam War. I am just a person who was born from the war and grew up in the post-war years of Vietnam. And now, living with the participation of the war as the American citizens. My perspective comes from the countless conversation with the American veteran who served in Vietnam. The first-hand story of the Vietnamese ARVN, the veteran who fought to protect their homeland, the survival accounts of Vietnamese civilians, husbands and wives, youngsters and adults who survived the wars. And lastly, the personal quest of truth through my research and discussion with the historian and actual former participation of the war is in very roles. Let me share this perspective with you. The North Vietnamese communists were not the nationalists as they claimed to be. The leader Ho Chi Minh was not the patriots who led the fight to bring independence and unify in Vietnam. On the contrary, Ho Chi Minh was the first foremost an agent of international communist bloc who received a directive to use Vietnam as the first battlefront to spread communist control against the West. Ho Chi Minh was a ruthless killer who betrayed all the true Vietnamese nationalists while using the Communist Party to control the people of Vietnam with the iron purse. Millions of people died under the communist agenda in the name of land reform and senseless policy, and were truly experiment of communist doctrines. The unifying of North Vietnam and the South Vietnam were not the wish of people of Vietnam prior to the war. For state stability in the region, the international community, including China and Soviet Union, would rather accept the separation of these two nation states to bring peace to the region until more peaceful resolution to rejoin the people without bloodshed and loss of million lives. The democratically elected government of South Vietnam, led by President Ngo Dinh Diem, were not corrupt or rulers, but rather capable and well-organized with a modern constitution aimed to develop South Vietnam into an open, democratic nation after independence from French colonial rules. At the time, this was a young government with a big challenge of developing the country while fighting communist invasion from the north within the country. All these struggles happen while the American control hand constantly overreaching into government responsibility of the Golden Year administration. The overthrow of the government and that of President Golden Year was supported directly by Kennedy administration for this very reason. I will stop my part right here and let my colleagues continue with what we growing up with, because we born after the war, and our dad is the prisoner of the war. And to be here to speak about the communists and to let people know the truth about the Vietnam War touching my heart, because if I lived in Vietnam right now, I don't think I can talk about this. They put me in prison or they're gonna kill me. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Yes. First of all, thank you very much for having us today. This great opportunity for people like us to talk about the things that been years been untruly torn, expressed around the world, and this is an opportunity for the Vietnamese to speak out about the truth. Allow me to talk a little bit about myself. I was born before 1975. So my whole family served for the South Vietnam. So when the reason I become the teacher and the history researcher, because when I went to school after 1975, when the communists took over the whole country, I was lucky enough to have some teacher who dedicate really to the sport of education, meaning telling the truth. And those teachers, they was from the South Vietnam. You know, after the communists took over, every textbook being approved by the government, dictatorship everywhere, doctrine everywhere. We call it brainwash. So lucky for me, one of my history teacher, he had to follow exactly the book we given from the government. But after that, he brave enough to say the truth to me and some of my friends. He was talking about the Tet Offensive. If you guys probably many of you know about that event. So after he followed exactly the book from the government, then he closed the book, he put it down on the desk. And he said, now, let me talk to you as the witness. And this is the truth about what really happened during those months and years. And right after that, he been called up by the principal of the school. And they forced him to change the lecture. Otherwise, they will jail him. And he bravely refused. And as the result, he was sent to what they call re-education camp. Another teacher, she taught Vietnamese language. You know, even the language, they changed everything. Like in every culture, in every language, the language can show you the culture of the people. The language can show you the ethics of a nation. So when the communists took over, they changed all of that. So that teacher, she also brave enough, after she closed the book, the textbook, and she turned to us and said, this is really what I'm going to tell you. This is really about the Vietnamese culture. The culture being wiped away by the communists after they took over. So because of the teacher, that inspired me to go seeking for the truth. So with my background, I cannot continue to higher education because my father, who served in the South, he also flew helicopter, like this gentleman here. So back to that times, I cannot go to college. So I chose to escape. I can go to college if I pay the local official enough gold. They don't calculate by the US dollar or Vietnam currency. They calculate by the piece of gold. If you pay like 5 pieces of gold for the local officer, they can find a way for you to get to the college you like. So I asked my mom, instead of using that, find me a way to escape. I'd rather die overseas for liberty, for the thing that my family and all the hundreds of thousands Vietnamese people believe in, democracy and freedom. They live as an animal under the communist system. So I went. I lucky enough to be alive and arrived to Thailand refugee camp. That was the time when I met a lot of people from the South, and they explained more about the world. So I would like to say something like that. During the 19th century, at the late 18th and continue to the 19th century, Vietnam was a colony of French. During that time, there's a lot of movement, a lot of people from the north to south. They try to take back the country, take back the independence from the French. There's a lot of different groups from north to south, including the group led by Ho Chi Minh. But at that time, Ho Chi Minh was not exposed himself as the communism. They ran under different color. Talk a little bit about Ho Chi Minh. When I went to school like Destiny, we were brainwashed. Ho Chi Minh picture painted as the father of the country. You know, in every single household, we have to put his picture on the altar above our ancestor. We have to call him uncle, right? So Ho Chi Minh, when we was in school, we were taught that he was like patriot, he nationalism. He loved the country, he loved people. He dedicated his whole life for the country and people. But when I came out of Vietnam and I met real witness during the French rebel, and after that I talked and I learned more about Ho Chi Minh. And especially after the collapse of the Soviet and the Eastern European country, a lot of documents been hidden many years before being exposed, including the facts about Ho Chi Minh himself. So now we learn Ho Chi Minh is not like what we learned in Vietnam. So who was he? He just like a young kid like me, 18 years old. He tried to looking for his own better future. He went to France asking the French government accepted him in a college so he can get the degree to go back to serve for the French, not for the people. That document still have in the museum in France. The letter he wrote to the officer asking for him to get into school, that is still there, but that letter has been hidden away for many years. That's number one. Number two, when he been rejected, and he also came to ask the US for help, but been rejected, then he turned himself, his son, to the communist system, to Stalin and Leninist at that time. And you know, during that time, both around the world, we just get out from World War I, World War II, and we are about to enter Cold War. In Vietnam itself, we just been many fighting to get independent back. So Ho Chi Minh and the communist system saw this as an opportunity to expand the communism in the Southeast Asia, and Vietnam is one of the country in their mind. So they sent Ho Chi Minh and those like Ho Chi Minh back to Vietnam, to China, to spread out the idea of communism. So when Ho Chi Minh came back to Vietnam, He formed the Communist Party in 1930, but under different name, because he know right away if he exposed communism at that time, they will reject. Because at that moment, once again, the Vietnamese people from the north to south want to kick out the French, get back the independence. There's a lot of groups. And Ho Chi Minh know that. So he played under communism. He used the power of the French and the power of the local government to try to eliminate all the groups, all the political groups. And just last month, no, this 2 weeks ago, we just have an anniversary to honor 13 persons in that political party, the true hero, the true nationalism, the true patriots of Vietnam, being killed by the French. But those who follow him after that being killed by Ho Chi Minh and his party. So that's telling me and those people who read about it too, Ho Chi Minh is not what been many books write about him or been taught in Vietnam. So that is one of the first reasons why the Vietnam War began. Because it starts from the fight for get back independence to Vietnam. And then when the French were took over by the Japanese during the World War II, and the Japanese came to took Vietnam. And then after the World War II ended, they tried to resolve the issue in the Southeast Asian countries. And the French really want to get back to Vietnam, to took the Vietnam. But at that moment, many countries get in, and a lot of Vietnamese people now try to get back their own land. So that moment is very conflict moment in Vietnam. And the conflict is also the opportunity for the communism to use, to manipulate the patriotism to get their power. I wish back to that time, if we have internet right now, I guarantee you nobody follow communism, nobody follow Ho Chi Minh. But at that time, we do not have technology, and most of the Vietnamese people, they just want to get out from the French. They will follow whoever they believe that can take back the country. Ho Chi Minh, he's the winner of that opportunity. He got that opportunity by eliminating on order of his opponents, on order of his political party, and gain that. So that is why I think the first Republic of Vietnam president, mentioned by Destiny Ngô Đình Diệm, when the Americans tried to get involved to Vietnam, we know that it's not good if the Vietnamese people see American as a foreigner in the country. You know why? Because we just want to get out the French. So the communists using that picture to manipulate for their narrative. See, American came to take Vietnam. The Vietnam just get away from the French, now under the control of US. That is the propaganda, the narrative of the North. And then they also create another group, like a puppet, what they call like the Liberty of the South Vietnam Front, Mặt trận giải phóng miền Nam. That's just like a puppet, hide under different name. To the world, it seems like the people who fight for independence, to reclaim the country, but in fact, they're fighting for the North. But unfortunately, the American or the Westerner didn't see that way. They just follow the Korean War, the Cold War, and they do the calculation, in Pentagon or White House. They do not know yet the culture, the history of Vietnam itself, or the country, the neighbor country. So they make a wrong calculation. The more they send people to the land, the backfire, the better propaganda narrative for the North. So the North always say, see, American come, American bombing, American kill people. You know, a lot of picture going out of the world. One way, not the other way, just one way, anti-war, anti the South Vietnam government system. And that's also one of the reasons we lost, because we don't have the voice for the world to know about our story until today. It's too late. Until today, too late. My dad, just like him, he volunteered to serve. He was exempt from the government, but he enlisted because he believed in freedom. My uncle, who had the opportunity, went to Europe for study, so he knows very well about socialism, communism, and other ideologies. Those are still new at that time, still very new for the most Vietnamese people. But my uncle, because he went to France, he knows so he learned. So he very successful man, and you know the liberty of the front, the puppet organization in the South Vietnam back to that time, people always have like in the morning activity are controlled by the government, but at night many regions of the South Vietnam being controlled by that organization. So one night, couple men from that organization came to meet my uncle and demand him to support. But he knew the true color of socialism and communism, so he refused. As a result, they killed him, they cut his throat in his bathroom. And my dad went into and saw that, and he burst out in tears. So he said, this is not the world of the communist or capitalism or the world of the US or the Soviet or Chinese. This is the world for the Viet people who truly believe the country belongs to the Viet people. The independence had to be fought by the Viet people. So he enlists just like Mr. Trinh here. He served in the South as many thousands of other people. But until 1972, the Paris Accord, like Mr. Trinh just mentioned, when the US got a lot of backfire from the escalation of the war during the 60s, the late 60s, and they tried to find a way to end the war in favor, benefit for the US. I don't blame them. I always talk to my friends and other people, I say, every country, every people have to put their own benefit first. You got to be healthy before you can save somebody else. But in the better way, you play it fair, play it in a humane way. So to my dad, Mr. Trinh, 100,000 of the Vietnam veterans, the Republic of South Vietnam veterans, they feel betrayed after the Paris Accord, 1972. Those so-called allies, they withdraw. And even during the Paris Accord, there was no representative from the South Vietnam government. The deal being discussed and come to the coalition between the Chinese, the US, and the two main powers back to that. As the result, he knew, and maybe you know too, the South Vietnam running out of supplies. My dad told me that, he flew helicopter to drop the soldier into the battle or pick up the wound. He has to calculate how much gasoline he can fly from one point to another point and come back. He cannot like hoover to wait for the wound to be transferred up to the helicopter because there's no more gasoline, no more bullet to protect the helicopter. his gun machine man had to calculate every single bullet to use this. Otherwise, when they run down that, they be in trouble. On the contrary, the North Vietnam and that puppet organization, they have strongly support from China, from Soviet Union and the Eastern European country. They have more supplies, they have more guns, they have more things to attack. However, the South Vietnam once again to show the world that we not coward, we not corrupted as the media painting. Right after 1972, and maybe Mr. Trinh will tell more about that battle, we left alone to fight, and we showed the world how we fight. 1973, face to face with the North Vietnam, and even together with the South organization of the North Communism. The South Vietnam, together with the people, we fought hard for months, protect every inch of land, and finally we won, bravely by many sacrifices, but we won, and we showed the world what we able to fight. The only thing we didn't have that time is the tool to fight the world. Even that's so obvious, right? Even like you strong and you against 10 people or 20 people, but they have all armor, they are built bullet. Even you are Jet Li or Bruce Lee, you have to the point that you cannot fight anymore. Then that happened to the South Vietnam. After 1973, eventually we run out of supplies. Eventually, we run out of help assistance, and the war has to end it that way. 1975, on April, my dad was called to report to the Air Force base. He was offered to leave Saigon. He came to my family and said, I don't want to go. And my mom asked why. He said, I cannot abandon my friends. We were abandoned by our allies. The last hope is the brotherhood that we still have. Let's fight. And my mom agreed. So on April 28, 1975, together we stayed inside Tân Sơn Nhất base. And during that time, the attack terrorist from the north. They don't care if there are children in there. You can see some photo of them. They bomb, they kill everybody that against them. Or not, even not against them, even not follow them. I was in there. Under a bunker. Every day I can hear the bombing. I look at the sky and see the rocket flying, smoking come out. And on the 29th, April 1975, my dad stormed into the bunker door and said, this is the last opportunity for our family to live. But instead he told my mom like that, just like that, then he draw out his pistol, he put it on the desk, said, I'm not leaving. And if the communists come, this is my answer. And my mom said, we will follow you. Then she pulled out sleeping pills. She said she's ready. Up me and I have two siblings. One is older than me and 2 years older than me. So my mom said, when the time comes, everybody will go together. I will give our children sleeping pill. And I took it. And we wait. And I remember clearly in my mind that we lay down on the bed and I can see the shaking of the ceiling. And one of his friends just suddenly came into the room and said, let's leave Tân Sơn Nhất because at that moment, 37th will collapse. And there's a rumor that some of brave Vietnamese soldiers and colonels and generals will rearrange the force, move quite farther to the south to fight. So my dad said, okay, I will left. So my dad friend of transportation, you know, the Vespa is very popular icon during that time. So I remember that he drove the Vespa, I was standing in front, my mom had carrying the youngest one in her back, that fell to sleep already, my sister in the middle, drove out Tân Sơn Nhất. And he just don't want to go right away, he said, let's go around the city and see what happened. And I bet you all see the picture of the US embassies, right? People getting around. I was there. My dad drove me there. And then he continued down to what we call Mát Đăng Port, which is where the commercial ship about to depart Saigon to carry a lot of people, as many as they can to live. But my dad just said, give me as a witness to see what's going on. And he refused to get on those things. He go back to one of the friends' house in Saigon, center of Saigon. The owner of the house also a scholar, very popular scholar and publisher in South Vietnam, Khai Trí. I was inside the library, and I was like 6 years old at that time, so I totally forget about what's going on outside. I was isolated by books. So I love it. And the adult also they separate me, you know, with the world outside going on. Anyway, so the next day, my dad drove me out and I saw they put out the statues of the Marine Corps in front of the Capitol Hill. So after that, 1975, now, if I'm allowed to, I may talk to you a little bit more about that. Like her, we went to school and we brainwashed. My dad being forced into what they call re-education camp. They said, take enough things for 30 days. That literally, they still have the paper. But they took him forever. He went there for 10 years. 10 years. After being taken away, 3 years after that, they notify us where he is. But during 3 years, we didn't know where he been captured. Thousand people like that. And after that, they start the socialism and communism right away. The puppet organization they set up during the war being destroyed, eliminated right away. 67, they re-election. They get unify the country and re-elect it, but they run the whole show. Everybody used to serve for them from the south, being kicked out. Many scholars who believe in the beautiful world painted by the socialists, after that, they opened their eyes. Many of them be jailed in re-education camps. And as for the ordinary people like us, we have many impact. If I have time, I can come back and more. The only way to survive, to live as humans, is escape the communism. And that is why back to the beginning I said, I chose freedom, democracy, liberty, rather I may die overseas. So I chose escape. And I'm glad that I'm still alive. And I think he up there give me this life because there's a purpose for this. So we now sit here and share the story for you. As teachers, you're all very important. Not speaking for myself and she, we've been brainwashed until today. Many generations in Vietnam have been brainwashed until today. And you know, one generation is already bad. This is 2 generations already. 2 generations, you see that how much damage can cause to the whole country. And the time to take back is not easy. So with that, I will end today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today and sharing your stories. Destiny, is it an appropriate time for questions from the audience? Very good. So I'm sure you must have some questions at this point, and it's a unique opportunity, so yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering what happened to your parents. So you escaped.
Yeah.
What about your parents? What?
We didn't have enough money to get up, to set up the escape. So my parents, in order to be safe, so before I escaped, right after that, my mom had to announce that I'm a bad boy, I'm a naughty son, so they had to announce on the newspaper, they cut off the relationship with me. You know why? Because if I've been caught, my escape been exposed, they've been in trouble. So that's the first step they do. My mom still continued to support the family. My dad, after I think President Reagan, and followed by Congressman Tim Kaine and Mark Kaine, opened up a human rights operation to allow people like him and my dad legally come to the U.S. So that is my dad and my mom came to the state by that way.
And your siblings?
My sibling, the younger brother came with me. The younger sister came with my dad after that, yes.
I'd like to add a story to that, kind of ties in with that. My name is Rick Curtin. I'm not a teacher, I'm a volunteer at the War Memorial. I flew helicopter in Vietnam back in 1970. I've lost touch with the personal people, and that's why I wanted to attend this 3 days. So that this was the part I really wanted to see these folks here. The lady who cuts my hair in Vienna, and she left Vietnam when she was a child. She left in a boat. But she told me the story of her father-in-law, who was very wealthy and had a very high-level job at the United States Embassy in Saigon. In January of 1975, he was warned by embassy officials that he should pack his immediate family together, make believe they were going on a 2-week visit to the United States, and then never come back. And that's what he did. She tells a story about the entire family was so excited because the gentleman and his wife and the 2 kids, they were leaving from Consulate Airport. The family came to see him off. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And only the gentleman knew that they were never coming back again. And when he got on the plane, he told his wife, she totally collapsed. The thought of never seeing her parents or siblings again, just before them going to a foreign country with the bags that they could carry. Went from, and this was a very wealthy man.
See, every single country have this civil war, even America. But in America, you see after the Civil War, the North and the South unified. We use people that have educated to build back the country, right? But with Vietnam, all the South officers, they have high education. But after that, some of them lucky to escape by the airplane, like he's saying, or by the boat, like him. Like my dad and his dad stayed, and they put them in prison for several years. At first, they just say you pack your clothes and go for 2-3 weeks just for, a camp. Then we unify, and then your family will live peaceful under the new government. But they're gone. One of my uncle, he couldn't stay in under prison. He escaped and they killed him. And my dad came home after 10 years. I was born right after falling of Saigon, and used on the TV lately, we see Afghanistan. The lady had the baby on the airplane. My mom said, I don't know how I get you out that day, but yet you came out. So that's happened. And growing up, we're not allowed to talk about the ARVN, or we're not allowed to hold that flag. Even now, you hold that flag in Vietnam, you're going to be in jail. And the communists really brainwash the younger generation. I remember on the news back then, one of the American students, they went to North Korea and he took touching the picture of the president, grandfather or something. They put him in jail until he got here and he passed. That happened in Vietnam when you do something with Ho Chi Minh's picture. You will be in jail just like that. So I think all the communists, they operate the same way. And even in China now. When China is their big brother. So they have to listen to China.
To follow up with, I would like share another true story that happened. Like they have us to worship Ho Chi Minh like God. There's once a time in Christmas, right? I went to Catholic school before they turned everything to government control. So there was a statue of Jesus Christ. And that Christmas day, and the nun asked us, we pray for Jesus. And then an officer came from the north. He said, okay, kid, ask Jesus for candy and see if Jesus give you candies. Of course, we young, we don't know. Just ask Jesus, give us some candies. And of course, no candies. And then he turned over and said, now back to Ho Chi Minh. Look at that picture of Ho Chi Minh asking for candies. And we just follow him and say, okay, Ho Chi Minh, Uncle Ho, please give us candy. And they pull out a bag of candy. They say, this is from Ho Chi Minh. You see, everything like that, they've been brainwashed the kid. And to the degree that even inside many family, Vietnamese family, being a divide between the brother and sister, that is going on, and sadly to see that in America because of different ideologies. Some family, they have some brother follow the north, some brother follow the south, and become a conflict. But like Destiny said, after 1975, we start to realize the true color, and many have to pay high price to see that, and too late when they see it, too late.
Okay, I don't see any hand raised. I want to supplement with some numbers about my topic, my concern of victims again. Okay, I was born in Hue, and I was there during the Tet Offensive in 1968. Two of my cousins was killed. 4 brothers in my neighborhood was killed. 6 of my classmates were killed. And the total of almost 6,000 innocent people was killed. And majority of them were buried alive. And at the end, looking back, like as you mentioned, 2 of my colleagues in the same unit tried to escape and were killed. my younger brother-in-law, he tried to escape and we had no trace. And we had tradition to commemorate the death. We don't know what day for him. And information is the key. But nowadays, we don't have exact or the truth information. Either misinformation, disinformation, or fake news. Every day here, we listen to or we read the polls. There are polls and polls everywhere. In Vietnam, you don't have your own opinion, no polls. About 7, 8 years ago, a paper ran the poll to ask the readers who you admire the most. And you know what? It came out, Bill Gates, number 1. And alcohol, number 7. By that time, no more poll, no more asking opinion, no readers, nobody can have a say what they have in their mind. So I think that we try to get the truth out. But now the media is so strong, the system is so strong. Individual, like myself, doesn't count. Even here, I think, living here almost 50 years, before, from the east, look to the west, we think that the west is about individualism. I don't think it's no more. The vote doesn't count, the voice doesn't count, the system counts. On the way, I talked to my friend on Richmond Street. Our society in the East, even in the West, who people respect the most in the village, in the city, the medical doctor. And now, our children get out of middle school, they have to find a job to serve in the system, serving Kaiser, not many private practice anymore. And that's our daily life. We talk about the nation society. That is very dangerous, very dangerous. What can we do?
I think that follow up that I think from our Asian cultures, we believe in family values. We believe in family values. For example, like during the time we've been brainwashed by the system, education system. But my grandmom, after 1970, they destroyed all the book published by the Tsar Vietnam, and even the author like well known around the world, Victor Hugo, they claimed it capitalism. So they burned all the books. You can see the photo of that. So in my family, my grandma had a bookcase been destroyed. But my grandma somehow, bravely enough, secretly keep 3 textbooks from the South. And because of those 3 textbooks, I realized a lot, I learned a lot. So that is why I say the family is the base of every society. During the regime of dictatorship like communism, we've been, when you walk out the street, you can hear the propaganda right where they put the speaker every single corner of the street from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. continuously propaganda about the system. But at home, my family secretly showed me the textbook, taught me the values that been hidden away. So back to the point that Mr. Trinh just brought it up. So I see we live in a world that the information can be manipulated by the bias, by the favor. But as teacher, like you and like my teacher, she gave me the true, but she also taught me the practical thinking. She taught me, do not listen to me. She told me that, do not listen to me. This is one piece of history I'm sharing with you. Because of that tiny piece, you may look the picture more complete. Though pieces being taken away from the government, that called disinformation, that called ban the truth. So I give you more piece to put together the puzzle. Then use your mind to look at the fact and think about it with your mind and your heart. So that is one thing that I learned from the teacher I never forget. So you are all teachers, and I bet that's the most important job, and I thank you for that. And you are the one to have the next generation and next future of not this country, but many, many other countries, because we all look at the U.S. as the beacon for freedom and democracy. Yes, sir.
Yes, I've listened to your plight, and kind of followed it, and it looks like, from the 1800s to the 1900s, you had the French colonization of, you guys, and then World War II broke out, and the Japanese tried to colonize you, and then after World War II, the French come back and try to colonize Vietnam, and then, late 60s, the United States come in. We know with the United States is coming in for ulterior motives. And from our textbooks and from our media, it was like, okay, if Vietnam falls to the south to communism, then it's a dominoes effect, and then it's going to affect the United States.
Yeah.
So we got two things going on here, and I want to come back to it. We got the media, and then we got brainwash. So now the United States media is telling the United States citizens, okay, we cannot let this happen. But at the same time, it looks like the United States has an ulterior motive of why it wants to come into to Vietnam. And, they have their reasons, but they're not telling the American citizens that. And it looks like when the war ended, the United States had to save face. So we ended up pulling out our troops, I think, in 73 and then 75. We just kind of left you guys hanging. Just left you guys out there because we didn't get to, the United States didn't get to accomplish what it wanted to accomplish. So we kind of left you guys out there. And then now, present day Vietnam, as you say, you talked about brainwash. You had, you learned something in school, but it wasn't really the truth. Your textbooks were removed, and then you had the media come in, and then they tell you one thing, and then but your parents or your relatives tell you, well, this is not the true way it actually is. And so we kind of see how the media can play a significant role across the United States. Kind of like the United States here. The media takes a small population and puts it on the area every day, 7 days a week, and say, this group of people or this country is this way. And now we've kind of brainwashed to think that, kind of like, let me give a good analogy, like the African American population. You're here, you see it every single day that it takes a small clip of an ethnic group, and it's crime related, stealing, it's this population is doing so much of this, but it really doesn't really tell the whole truth. Like it never zoomed into my family, because I had 2 parents, worked, I had 7 siblings, and we all went to college and got college degrees. None of us went to prison. So it just kind of gives you a snippet of what it wants you to know about this certain population of this country without telling the truth, and kind of the same way with you guys. It kind of, the media plays a very, very vital role in the world, but it only tells you what it wants you to know. And it brainwashes you, or like, it just tells you repeatedly, over and over and over, this is how it is.
If you want to piggyback on that, that's fine. I know Ray's been really
I just
patient
wanted
too.
to mention
Yeah.
that there was a professor of mine that told me that the United States never actually declared war. And because they didn't declare war, no funds were ever really appropriated for the war. So the country never, the United States is a country which believes that if they are all in, they're all in, like World War II and Japan and Germany, all in. But it was never able to sell the real reason why they were in Vietnam. There comes the dissension, and they never declared war. And we are actually still paying we're still paying for that war 50 years later, the amount of money that was spent, because it was never declared. When you declare war, money is appropriated. Never happened.
Well, let me, talk about war, and my last thing to mention. When you talk about war, you talk about win and lose. And I definitely can say this, we won. We didn't lose any battle. We fought. My friend, my generation, this is a big sacrifice to win the battle. And even last time I met the author, Robbins, he wrote a book. This time we win about the Tet Offensive, because I'm from there, so he sent a book to me and said, yeah, we win everywhere. They win in terms of killing innocent. We win big in killing the other guys. By the numbers, big numbers. We lost first of all, I have to pay respect to over 60,000 African GIs. We lost a life there. And then in RBN, we lost 250. And they lost 1 million. That's a big number, they're different. So who won that? We won, we go by the number, by the casualties, by lives. But people just, history book, the war lasts almost 50 years, way before that Black April, 1975. But history book may come down with maybe half a page, and they end up by the North won the South. It's not that simple. You a teacher, I respect teacher. I'm grateful to teacher. I know you go deep down, much deeper than that half a page of history book.
Ray, you've been patient. Did you have a question or comment?
Yes, the gentleman that was a soldier for the South Vietnamese, correct? What were your hopes for your country, to your personal thoughts or aspirations as a soldier in the South, fighting for democracy, fighting for the right to survive as an individual company or an individual country? What were your thoughts there?
Okay, the motive for individuals and the person, we fought for our survival at the prime. Thing comes to our mind. Personal survival, family survival, and a nation survival. People go, as always say, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, but we are a nation, the Republic of Vietnam. And it has been recognized. We have embassies of more than 100 nations from the world, not only the US. And during the war, 5 nations sent troops there to help us. So the reason we fought, like I said, for the simple-minded people, the soldiers, the high school graduate. I don't know about your students, but democracy, and I mentioned about human rights. How much you care about human rights? You have plenty. You have more than enough human rights here. But the day-to-day life, our survival, like I said, during the night, the communist guerrilla come and collect things, kill people. We have to defend our hamlet, our village, our city, our nation. Is a nation. That's the main thing in our mind. But later on, because like I said, we don't run propaganda as much as Mr. Kai mentioned. So the soldiers, with our discipline and our own survival, and we had to win the war, and we did. We win the war. We won the war, big. So we did fulfill our duty, we did our job. We had no second thought about it. And if my last word and be America, I love America. You are American by birth, and we are American by love. Thank you.
I want you to know Ray is also an American soldier who served in Vietnam, just as Rick. So both of them have served.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
Kind of putting yourself back to, because I was in Vietnam in 70, 71, in the Central Highlands, Plainview province. Did you think at that time that Ho Chi Minh was the best leader for the country? Thinking back, and of course history is always very easy to look at and understand, the problems that those leaders and those involvements presented themselves. But did you think that Ho Chi Minh was the best leader for the uniting of the country at that time when you were a soldier?
Again, here we have an issue of individual and the system. Individually, Ho Chi Minh is nobody.
Right.
Way back before your time, 71 there, he been isolated.
Right.
Well, he died in 69.
Right.
But way before that, many years before he died, he was isolated. Even some people say, Ho Chi Minh back then was a fake. I said, I don't care about fake or real Ho Chi Minh, but he's nobody. The whole gang took over. Lady Paul, who refused half of the Nobel Prize with Henry Kissinger. He the power, he is the power. And he decided to invade the South. The whole war, the real name is a country from the North invaded another country from the South. It's simple as that. And he got support from the whole world international communist movement. And we were supported by US, thankful. And that way, that's how we could survive 20 years. And without that, we can survive. And now, at this very moment, even as Americans, we're fighting for American support. Support the people, not the regime, not the system, the people. At this very moment, a few weeks ago, or last week, people revolt We want to be killed, to be captured, to be jailed, because they don't have freedom of religion. They are ethnic group in Highland. You understand, they're very nice. They believe in God, but they're not allowed to practice. They're not allowed to have a church. They only have house church. They meet in a house. They're not allowed to have more than 5 people. And yes, I have been in my troop, the airborne division had been everywhere. Highland during the summer 72,
What,
during
173?
Tecumseh,
Right.
during the Kherson,
Mhm.
Laos, Cambodia operation. I am everywhere. I see people. More people we know, more we know. The problem is the system, the corporate, they never get in touch with the people. And
Politicians.
you the front line to get contact with people, to educate people, to educate the youth. Before I respect the individualism of the West. Like even here, the first grade, you call them students. Yeah, I mean, they study. In our system, we work with European system. We call the student élève in French. That means you bring them up, the whole person, not just education, not just information. Until you get past high school, when you go to college, then they call you student. You study on your own. But high school, elementary school, you go to school to be elevated by teacher like you, with the knowledge, humanity knowledge, not technical. Again, Ho Chi Minh, they set him up to be worshipped by the people. They put his bust in the pagoda next to the pagoda, the Buddha. And how do they do that? Like he said, by brainwashing, by force. If you liberate the people, nobody, lowest IQ will accept that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I had the honor to have a meeting 2 years ago, and I taught him and coached him in soccer, and he moved here when he was about 13 with his family. And I would ask him what life is like after Vietnam. He would say, "No one talks about it, I'm willing to put this on here because this is so much better." He was the happiest, most positive student I think I've ever had in my life. He really embraced his education, and that alone showed me how terrible conditions were there. We still have a relationship, and he still talks to me a lot. But it just shows like how it's still a struggle there. So I'm curious, like, what are the steps to make life better in communities? Like, what are the things that have to be done to try and create democratic society there? Do you think?
Allow me to answer first as a job duration. We believe that you have to open people's mind, like he also brought it up. Just like here, you have a freedom of education, so you can looking for things that been hidden away. So the more knowledge that we know, then the more knowledge we can find a way to free ourselves, to make our life better. Most of the Vietnamese people right now, under 50 years of the communism, they've been taking away a lot of values the human values. They've been brainwashed. I mean, if you want to live, you have to obey the system. To the point that right now, young generation, they just follow the materialisms. Big building, beautiful house, beautiful cars, and don't follow big propagandas and the change in the system. But like he said, and she said, if you go deep into the society, you can see different, like your student, he mentioned in one. So to me, the point is like, try to educate the people, to bring back those values so they can see that not just the bread you eat or the price you eat every day that can keep you alive, but more than that, you need things that be taken away from the government. And to have that, you can have everything else. So step by step right now, as many Vietnamese overseas, we try to send back the information about democracy, about freedom. Even like people in Vietnam, you see, like they secretly go online and bring out the declare independence of the U.S. and they be in jail. And they bring out the Constitution of the U.S. and they be in jail. So those is also, to me, another way look at that is the young generation, they're hungry for education, knowledge, to get out of the system. So that, I think, for me, that's the first step to do.
Yeah, but not from the books. I don't have any number about how many bad books, how many good books. We try to read good books. And the bottom line, you talk about after the war, at the aftermath, nowadays thing. Very personally, I want people to go to read, to learn, to touch, to feel Vietnam. The real one, the people, even if you talk about system, yeah, know that the system, like he mentioned Ho Chi Minh, the real Ho Chi Minh, the name, the people, the person, and how people think about him. My son, after he got married, and his wife insist to go back to Vietnam to know about the country for their honeymoon. And the last day, they were sitting in the resort, looking out, and my son said to his wife, I think that's the bad thing he done for me. Oh, that's the best thing. He said, honey, if my dad didn't have me on his back on the way out on the 29th April of 1975, I realized that man out on the street selling lottery tickets, selling cigarettes. I love it.
Continue to answer your question. Besides, like we teach in our younger generation about history, the right history of the Vietnam War, like they say. The fact is right now, Vietnam government receive a lot of free money from America. So we, Vietnamese American, we try our effort to work with American government to put pressure on the Vietnamese government to open up the country. So we, at least people, have a basic democracy and human right. Children over there have no human right. Women, they sell a woman, still until today. So I think America should not give them a free trade. They have to put on the table that's a deal of human right before they can give them money.
And even like, if you want to know the true society or system, you have to look like us. If you come back to Vietnam, they will treat you different. The way they treat you, totally different with us. They won't show you the real face. They only show the real face to people who look like me and her, because they know we are Vietnamese. But for those like you guys went to Vietnam or from Europe, they will try to be nice and show you totally. So you have somehow to have camouflage into the people to see the truth. Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting, I have a diary from World War II in the 1930s, just before the war began. And an American woman from Massachusetts was traveling through Germany in 1937. And she wrote about what an amazing country it was and how they built the new highways and what great things Hitler had done for Germany. So again, as an American coming, they put one face forward, and then for their own citizens, they had a different face. So very similar. Just
I have just two reflections. As a former ESL teacher, I can ditto what this lady said about my Vietnamese students. And the other reflection, the entire time I was listening, my daughter-in-law, her family fled Cuba. And knowing about Cuba today, because they still have family there, I could identify with so many things you said. Their original values of family, the fact today they have to, religion is barred unless it's a home church, textbooks, her parents witnessed those executions. And I just felt a personal connection because of her family and what I know is going on in Cuba today. And they put that pretty face on the people that go there to the resorts and vacations. Thank you.
I have a question. When I was young, I asked a girl to go to a dance with me, and she was of a different religion. And her parents initially said no, that we could not go together. But then they said, you may go to this one dance, but you may not date after that, because the purpose of dating is marriage, and you are not permitted to marry him because he is of a different religion. And I wonder, do you struggle with preserving your culture here in America, or do you fear that each generation it will be lost a little bit more and more? Just as she, her parents feared they would lose their culture if for some reason I would ever, marry their daughter.
Where the community activists, I see extreme. I think they are extreme everywhere. Older people, even some young people, they love the traditional society. Even they grew up or they missed or just heard about it. They want to keep exactly as it was. And the other extreme is entirely Americanized. And we try to go halfway. To keep whatever's good and learn only whatever's good. And easy said and done. And who can tell which one good? Like he said, different religion, marriage, multiracial marriage. I had to see the positive. Personally, like my son had the multiracial marriage. I'm so glad. First of all, I love more than other contact because of family. And I let out anything that won't fit. Like this, I like this saying, only one woman in the kitchen. No two women in the kitchen. So my wife said, here, we're guests, okay? She only cooked what she would ask for. My daughter-in-law said, Mom, can you show me how to cook pho? Sure, I do it. Yeah, it's good. From that on, they cook pho one in a while. And so thanks to the YouTube You don't have you don't need a live teacher. You can go with YouTube and cook for tomorrow, okay? Yeah, if you go to the Orlando grocery, you get all the ingredients that you can cook for. Go ahead. And but again, again personally, when the pandemic came out, it was so much. I worry about me dying. If I die, my wife, she never touched a hamburger. She said, why I have to eat hamburger? I can cook rice every day. But if I die, now I took, when the pandemic came out, I do a lot of cooking because if she died, I still alive. I won't be starved. And everything personal. And that, answer your question, the tradition, the new and old and different, we have to be choosy. Like I said, some of our tradition not very good. Not very good. And American, sometimes it's hard for us to follow. Sometimes hard. Like to let the children free and independent to do whatever they want. It's hard. My daughter, 37, she's still single. Wow, it's hard for me.
Yeah, I think traditionally speaking, or generally speaking, the Vietnamese, the Viet people, we not like very extreme. We just stick to some core values in our culture. We stay that way, and we try to adapt to the new situation. That is why you see that even we are the youngest minority group in the U.S. We just not for like after 1975, but many Vietnamese families, not just in the U.S. but around the world, being successful because we try to adapt to the new things. But we still keep the core values. We mix them up, put it that way. So we not go to extremely, right? Destiny is a young woman raising.
Yes, because me and my husband is Buddhist, and my son went to Benedictine. Benedictine.
The lady who cuts my hair at the end. I only need a haircut every 4 weeks, but I've been going every 3 weeks just because I enjoy our talks together, and especially how she tells me about her family dynamics. She came over very young, maybe 3 or 4 years old. Her husband is quite a bit older, and he's much more conservative, and she's much more Americanized. And the struggle that they've gone through with their now 25 to 30-year-old children, especially when the daughter started dating an American, and father was not happy about that, but Leanne calmed him down. But then they moved in together, and that was an explosion in the house. But they managed to work their way through that also.
Love. If you have love, everything will be okay.
I'm going to tell her that. I'm going to see her next week.
Okay.
I'm going to tell her to tell her husband that, remind him of that every time.
We have just a few minutes left. Gary?
Yeah, question for you. So, you two guys live in the DC or Northern Virginia area, and you are right here in Richmond. And I know in DC they have like Chinatown. So with the area where y'all live at, is there just a population of Vietnamese that y'all are surrounded by? And the same way with you, your son went to Benedict, so I'm assuming you may live in a mixed area, or is it just a Vietnamese community?
Is the Eden Center still very thriving?
Yes, it's still there.
Well, the community, the Vietnamese American communities, are different from east, from west, from north, from south. The Little Saigon, Orange Bold Star Avenue, just like our Mecca. I used to go there at least twice a year. Now my daughter's on the west, I go even more. And the south, another big community is Texas and Houston, and they're famous in their cuisine. But here in the northeast, in the Atlantic area, they both very much respect them. Hey, you are intellectual, you know everything. No, we don't know everything. Yeah, we just close to more important things here, the capitals here. We ride the metro and we might be sitting next to the general, next to the, we went to the Capitol Hill to do some campaigns, some petitions, some lobbying here and there, and we made a big shot. They never see it. Our local news is their national news. So the relationship, the comparison is hard, but just different. We try to work together to bring up the community.
I was gonna say, my friend, he travels to Vegas multiple times a year for Paris by night. And that's also a big thing. He loves Paris by night. He talked to me about it and shared some of that with me. And that's, I think, his way of getting community, because where we're from is not a huge community. And I think that's his way of sharing.
Right.
Do you think that helps keep some of that community alive and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And with the new technology, you know, like even now we communicate with people around the world through Zoom or, Microsoft Teams. And that is the way the technology, like, not just open up many things, including the knowledge, the history, education, and also maintain the culture on networking between people around the world, between the Vietnamese community within the U.S. and around the world as well. Yes, absolutely. And we've been involved in many different activities. One of those, like Paris by Night, we had many programs, especially for the youth. And recently, she and I working, the New York, every year they have the International Cultural Festival. We participate in that. Next, in July 4th parade in DC, we also participate in that. And now, down here we have working with the Museum of History and Culture down in Richmond for the next program, working on the expedition of the Vietnam culture. Yeah. I mean, we try many different things. If you all love to get involved or get information, we will spread it out. Yeah.
I would love to invite all the teacher here, because I'm gonna do the Vietnamese New Year's in February coming. And to answer and you with the Vietnamese community here, we don't have a lot like they have in Northern Virginia, but we do have, most of them, we live, I mean, in every single county here, but Henrico is where we have more Vietnamese people. You see there a 1080 store right there on Horse Bend Road. That's where most of the Vietnamese stores, and I mean, if you want to buy Asian food, is there. Yes, and I do the New Year's for Vietnamese every year in Richmond, so I would love you to come and enjoy our culture. That's the way that we reserve our culture for our younger generation. The reason why I volunteer to serve the community, because of the communists, they wiped out every single culture that we have before 1975. So everything now is brainwashed, and then they operate like the communist way. Especially, she said, why people love Paris by Night, because of our music. That's one of the best of our culture before 1975. We have a lot of music that can describe our people, our love, family suffer from the war. Everything they put into the lyric of the music, which is communist right now. They don't even have one song that popular. They could do. And if the people in Vietnam sing the song before 1975, they could be in jail too. So they listen to Paris by Night, but somewhere in the background or in somewhere that not in the public. Because certain song that talking about veteran or the Vietnam War, that communists didn't want people to hear. And in the 80s, that when I went to school, they teach us to hate Vietnam, ARVN, and American veterans. So when I came here, so I find out it's not the way that they teach. That's why I volunteered to serve and to teach our children. It's not too late to honor our veterans. And I really thank you.
ARVN is the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, the South Vietnamese Army.
Yes. And for our generation, if they wasn't there before to help Vietnam, I won't be here today. Probably I'm still somewhere, like he says, sit on the street and sell lottery ticket. Because back then, when my dad in prison, I went to school and I did really good in school, but I couldn't go any farther or get into advanced class because of my background. So one of my teachers, he adopted me, changed my last name with his family last name so I can go a little farther until my dad came home and my dad had to change my last name back to his so we could come to America.
Very good. Well, we have come to the end of our time, which is hard to believe. I noticed some themes, though. Family, love. It seems like we're all closer together today, and I appreciate that. I've always said, once you get to know someone and hear their story, you realize the differences melt, and you root for them. And I just appreciate you coming and sharing your story today, because I can feel the compassion in this room that we have for you and your culture and experiences. So thank you again for sharing. Lunches are here, and we wanted to give our guests, we do have extra lunches, so we would love it if all of our guests would have lunch with us. Crystal, I believe, are you having people pick it up in the hallway? No? Okay, she's going to bring them in now. And so we'd love for our guests to grab a lunch first. And then, I know you're all our guests, but our special guest for just today, because it's day 3, you're family by now, okay? But our special guest today will please eat first or grab a lunch first, and then everyone else. But thank you all for your questions and for your time today. It's been very educational.
Thank you for listening to us. We would love to share, and especially you are a teacher. You're going to share with your student better than us, a lot better than us. Thank you so much.
If you come up with additional questions down the road, please reach out to me, because we are in touch with Destiny and we can forward those questions also. Okay, so please don't hesitate. Very good. And if you want to come have a picture taken with anyone, please feel free to do that also.
Can we have a group picture?
And also
the other day, yesterday, seems like last week, yesterday we had the teachers gather behind while the guests sat. Is that okay today? Okay, so come on up and we'll have a group photograph.
Some general, they put them in prison for 7 years.
Ủa? Ông Trinh đâu rồi? Where?
Oh, no, no.
Did you want to give this picture? Okay. All right, one more.
I need you over.
Oh, you need me over there?
Yeah, I will take a picture.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I'll come up too.
Can you go to next lady over there? Yes, the two lady. Yeah, yeah. He want to go in there, right? Or maybe the. Yeah, cho ông bảo ngồi.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Stand by. Stand by.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, stand by.
One more.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And one more. Stand by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you very much.
We have to take many times to make sure everything's okay.
Yes, yes. Everything okay?